everybody? Hugh Kellenberger here, along with Dustin and Dopirak from Carver-Hawkeye Arena in Iowa City, Iowa. Iowa's assumed, but whatever.
Yeah.
All right. We've just finished filing. Dustin is holding off for 10 minutes from watching the Steelers game.
7-0.
7-0.
Yeah.
So let's get to it. A really disastrous performance from the Hoosiers.
Pretty much, yeah.
I didn't really see this coming at all. They played obviously well enough to beat Michigan quite handedly. They had played well enough to beat Wisconsin.
They were there at least.
Yeah,
I don't know
they
if they played well enough to beat Wisconsin. They played well
but
enough
they
to
played
beat
well
most
enough.
other teams.
Yeah, right. And then they come out and there's this.
Yeah, I mean, the Verdell Jones injury has a lot to do with it. I think, obviously, not that he's the greatest defender in the world. He's not. And obviously he has his problems offensively in terms of turning the ball over and not making brilliant decisions. But I think you could tell that there was something missing from them emotionally without him. I think there were some other issues. We didn't know until the postgame that Jordan Hulse is apparently battling some sickness and was throwing up right before the game started. So basically, I think it was one of those situations where one thing kind of fuels another. As much as defense should be your backbone and whatnot, and defense should provide offense. When things are going bad offensively, they tend to go bad defensively. And I think that was a significant part of this. I mean, offensively, they couldn't really accomplish much. When Jordan can't shoot, Verdell's out, you have nobody who can really create their own shot off the perimeter. All they could do is get the ball to Watford. That was their only option. And I think that sort of just general helplessness sort of infiltrated, infected everything else.
Yeah, I mean, I think there were 4 guys on this team at the beginning of the season that the team really felt like those are the guys that can lead us in scoring on any given night and not be weird. One of those guys is in Bloomington, just had knee surgery.
Right.
One of those guys apparently has inflammation in his knee, so he didn't play. One of those guys was sick and was 1 of 8 from the field.
Right.
So it just left one guy. The margin of error just got completely blown out.
Extremely small. No,
they got to the point where they were relying on Matt Roth. He played more minutes than he had in 5 weeks.
He was 4 for 12 from 3. He had to take 12 3-pointers. I mean, that's really all Matt Roth can do. I mean, there was a lineup, and I just kind of looked up their average points per game combined, and it was 18.4.
It was
Watford average 16.
Daniel Moore, Matt Roth,
Victor Oladipo,
Will Sheehy.
I think it was not Sheehy. It was Capo.
Capo was in there.
It was Daniel Moore, Matt Roth, Bobby. I think maybe Sheehy and Oladipo.
Yeah, that was it.
That was it, and that's
so 2 freshmen, a sophomore.
No, Rivers. It was Rivers. It was not,
Rivers.
That's even worse.
Right.
That's actually Sheehy does score more points per game than
Rivers
does.
It was a bad lineup that
it was not a good
very
lineup.
long.
There was not a lot that. What is that lineup going to do offensively? I mean, really, what is that lineup going to do?
That lineup has to create off with this defense.
Yeah, it does. And if they're not causing transition buckets, there's not a lot that can happen. So there wasn't a lot that could happen today. But again, I mean, there were just basics that went wrong. I mean, transition defense was really bad. They were not good on the dribble drive. Especially, I thought it got uglier in the second half. Like once they had kind of already sort of built up a lead. I think you and I were talking. I think that it seemed like it came on a lot of Van Wan's kind of post-defense stuff. Didn't seem like there were a lot of horrible defensive possessions early, but they were still getting scored on. They were still getting scored on, and guys that were just kind of outworking them in the post. Melson Basabi, a freshman who's really turning into something. He had 20 points and 10 rebounds. A lot of that was on Watford. He didn't defend well as he played offensively. He didn't really defend well at all. They were able to get fouls on Pritchard, who obviously apparently wasn't communicating either. They were able to get fouls on him, and then once he came out, Kappa wasn't for a while and didn't do much. And then they were kind of posting up on Elston, who still obviously is not a center and is not going to be a center. And they were just able to really take advantage of those guys inside by both driving the ball at them and just throwing the ball for post-ups. Just were able to score really, really easy.
Yeah, and that's discouraging because this is an Iowa team that came in averaging 62.5 points a game. Yeah. In the Big Ten.
Yeah. This is not supposed to happen.
Not supposed to happen. This is Basabe scores 20 points. Matt Gaines had 19. Devon Roy Marble had 18.
I think it is Roy Devon.
Is it Roy Devon?
It is,
actually.
Okay. But point being, that's still not supposed to happen either.
Those things aren't supposed to happen. It happened tonight, and it wasn't because Iowa just suddenly could make everything. It was Indiana's defense was so poor, but also, and it got to the point where there was a feeling of helplessness.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that was the biggest thing is that, and that, like I said, it carried over. They could not do anything offensively. They had virtually no options, and defensively, they just seemed to. When one thing went wrong, they were like, "Well, what else is going to go wrong?" that seemed to definitely kind of, again, sort of infect the mindset. I mean, they got to the point where they just weren't, they weren't stepping in to try to get charges, those sorts of things. It just sort of seemed like everything kind of fell apart down the stretch. And even though then they started pressing, and then they get beat by a full court pass.
Right.
Yeah,
they weren't very tough, and that's scary going forward because Illinois comes to Assembly Hall on Thursday.
And then it's Michigan State out there.
Right. And Illinois is a team that you can beat if you are tough.
Yeah.
Because they will back down.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're not, suddenly they're the number one team in the country.
Yeah. No, I mean, they've got some talent. Obviously, McCamey might be is up there with the most. If he's not the most talented point guard in the conference, he's close.
Yeah.
He's somewhere at least in that discussion with Taylor and Lucas and some of those other guys.
I think at his best, he's better than those guys.
Yeah.
He's a little all.
He's tough. I mean,
he's a little all or nothing.
Yeah. I mean, he could have one of those games where he just goes in an absolute hole, but he can also go up for 30 and 13 or something like that.
Yeah. They have their big guys all have issues, but they can kind of rotate them around. Yeah. And Indiana's big guys have issues.
And there's not a lot of them.
So I mean that's going to be a really tough game. And then Michigan State. The Spartans are still the Spartans. They're really,
that's the type of team that could just run them over.
Yeah.
Just, I mean, Michigan State's not playing great right now. This is not the team that everybody kind of expected to kind of run away with the league, but it's still Michigan State. It's still a tough team. It's still up in East Lansing.
And it's a game that Tom Izzo can circle and say, this is where it's all going to start.
Right. Yeah.
We're going to get this done. We're going to do it in such a manner that it can't help but bleed into the next month for us.
Let's be emphatic about this.
Right.
I think this, for all the consternation, I guess, of Verdell, in a strange way, I think today kind of validated
that they need him.
Yeah. As much as for all he's screwed up, and he's not had a good year. I mean, he's leading the Big Ten in turnovers. That's not something that you would call a good year. There's a lot of things that haven't gone well. It just so happens that the way this team works, the way this offense works, if he's not doing anything, they're in trouble. Plain and simple. If they're not getting scoring from him and Watford, then other things don't open up. I mean, there are guys that do one or two things well offensively, but in order for that to be effective, they need to have Jones and Watford doing more than one thing. They need to have Jones breaking down a defense, hitting mid-range jumpers, getting to the lane. When he does that, then you can get guys like Rivers and Sheehy and Oladipo who can slash but can just drive in straight lines. They get lanes. That opens up. And then, Holzen, Roth, and whoever else get jumpers. I mean, those sorts of things need to happen for those guys to get effective. Nobody else in this team can make it happen for themselves, but if those guys are making it happen, they have a lot they can contribute. And if they don't have somebody who's kind of making it go, and I guess unfortunately for IU, that's Jones.
Right now it is. That's the situation right now is that Verdell Jones is the best person to be playing that role in this offense.
Yeah.
And there's really no one else who can do it.
No, exactly. I mean, as much as Holes in a way is the best pure point guard in this team, just the way this offense works, it desperately needs a point guard who can dribble drive and shoot. So that takes out Holes who can't dribble drive and Rivers who can't shoot. So it's got to be Jones.
Yeah.
That's really what it comes down to. Is so many days he has not been there and therefore it didn't work, but when he's working, he's their only option.
Yeah, they need to figure it out. They'll have a few days
to get something together, see if that
information it's a day-to-day, indefinite. So
it's knee inflammation. I mean, if we're getting the straight, prognosis, that's not a tear. That's not a ligament thing.
Right.
I mean, that sounds like nagging. It's going to be a problem continually, but I can't see it being one of those where he's got to have surgery or it's 4 to 6 weeks or whatever it is. It's how did Verdell feel when he woke up this morning?
Right. It's really
tomorrow, the next day.
How much pain can you play with? That's what it kind of comes down to, because it's not going to go away until you just get off of it.
Right.
But
exactly.
That's going to take longer than you want it to when you're in the course of a season.
Not that we're doctors or anything.
Right. But
from covering sports this amount of time, you hear about these things.
Right. It kind of comes down to what is his will, what is his drive. I think Verdell is a tough kid.
Yeah. It's will and it's drive, but it's also how much pain is there. I mean, there's a certain amount of pain you're suffering, you're useless. It doesn't matter how tough you are. You just can't do anything with it. So, I mean, if it's swelled up and you can't move on it, what's the point?
Yeah.
So, but I mean, we'll see. We'll see how does this team react to that? How does this team... And things can change when you have a couple days to get over the fact that you don't have them. You obviously have to change things. You have to working things offensively. And if we've seen anything, I mean, Crean at least has. You've seen a lot
There's
of
new
wrinkles
wrinkles offensively.
Off the ball screening is a new thing, and it's a real thing.
There's been a lot of kind of some principles of flex a little bit with the 4 and the 5 being down in the low post.
Right.
We've seen a little bit of that. Some inside out, some high low. So there's been some wrinkles. So we'll see what's the next wrinkle.
How do you do this when you don't have
yeah.
when you don't have anything that resembles the point guard you want?
Right. Sounds good. All right, everybody. Thanks for watching.
Thanks.